I was first introduced to yoga when I was 7 years old. And my parents at that time were going to and involved with different ashrams on the East Coast of the US. So particularly Muktananda's ashram and also Kripalu, which was at the time kind of had the guru of Amrit Desai, who was overseeing that process. And it was, my stepfather also was involved with Osho or Rajneesh's ashram. My childhood teddy bear was named Rajneesh, if that says something. And if any of you are kind of tracking some of the, yoga world in the last, I'm almost 50. So, to put into context that we're talking 43 years ago, and a lot has happened in those yoga communities since my early introduction to that. So we went to a lot of these very early experiences. I was often in the children's room at these ashrams, or would be kind of taken along with my parents into evening satsangs or evening ceremonies. One point when I was 7, we all received Shaktipat, a bop on the head by Muktananda. So there was a lot of early energy around this. And I won't go into all of the stories because there's a lot of them, but one of which is that around that same time, about 2 weeks after we received Shaktipat from Muktananda, my house caught on fire, my childhood home. And my parents had this association between somehow whatever happened in this igniting of the Shakti and this puja and this fire ceremony was connected to our house catching on fire. Now, it's a long story, but it led them to actually retreat away from being so involved in yoga or in those communities. And even when we were involved in those communities, especially as a Jewish white family, I always felt on the periphery, right? So that there was some way in which it was my world and it wasn't my world back then. And yet at the same time, there was something about, just for me as a kid, practicing what, I don't know, I guess it was called yoga, but like being a tree, being a cobra, roaring like a lion. It was so playful that the experiences I had of embodiment in that world, in that arena, was delightful. My stepdad came in and taught yoga to my entire 3rd grade class, and we would all get this break from school and be silly and do funny things and fall down and laugh. So for me, that's the earliest embodiment, and it kind of has those multiple layers to it. And then, fast forward as I grew up, I kind of walked away from yoga. I was a teenager, wasn't so interested in it. I had other childhood losses, really significant losses, what I would call complex trauma. And that as by the time I was in my late teens, early 20s, I was experiencing a real phenomenal amount of anxiety and depression, a real groundlessness in myself. And I felt like it was a real blessing when in college, a friend of mine dragged me by the hand and took me back to a yoga class. And there was a way in which getting back onto the mat had a familiarity, and through practice, I would feel, quote unquote, like myself again. The breathing, the movement, the playfulness, I just felt like I was back home in a certain way. And so I just was like, okay, well, this is helping. Whatever it's doing, it's helping. And so I just kept going back. And by the time I was 23, I went and did my own yoga teacher training at Kripalu. Now, in Kripalu in 1996, this was the year after Amrit Desai was kicked out of the leadership of the ashram because it was discovered that there were financial and sexual transgressions in that community, a real misuse of power. So I entered back into that arena at a time that it was completely reorganizing. And that feels important. It's a very important element for me in terms of what it is that I bring as a teacher, but by all means, not a guru, okay? Like, I love to teach yoga, but what I love is to empower you to embrace this as it is organic and nourishing and truthful and authentic to your body. It's not that I'm ever going to say Simon Says type teaching, right? Do this, do this, do this. I feel that that is a disservice. And again, it is of great value to me to engage with this practice and engage with these teachings in right use of power. So that's the frame, that's the foundation that I come to you today. And if you're going to join me for the longer applied polyvagal theory in yoga course, that's the foundation of that course, is really to come with my heart and what I love about this. And I've spent many years now, the same year that I did my teacher training, I also entered into a 3-year master's program in somatic psychology. A few years later, after I graduated from that, I entered into a doctoral studies program where I have been now spending over 25 years really studying why these practices work, understanding the neurophysiology behind the breath, behind movement, and why, for me personally, when I got back on my yoga mat, my anxiety symptoms decreased. My feelings of depression improved. I felt an overall shift in quality of life and quality of comfort in my own body. And I've just spent so many years trying to understand embodiment and what really leads to those positive changes, because of course there's a lot of research that shows that there's improvements in heart rate variability and research about improvements in symptoms of PTSD and so on and so forth. So my passion is to really understand some of the why and also to teach the practices that create those positive changes.